I would probably ask him about the plates. If they're actually plates that are an ancient record, that means he is a prophet.
If you could ask Joseph Smith one question, what would it be and why?
Okay. As a Protestant evangelical, I would probably ask him about the plates, specifically physically plates.
Conundrum.
If there were plates and people saw them, what did they see? And then if they're actually plates that are an ancient record, that means he is a prophet.
Sure.
And if there aren't, that means he's not.
This is historiography, this is history 101 of Behan McCullough and logic of history and putting that together to say, okay, once you lay out the facts, what explanation is the best explanation of those facts that has the best quantitative scope? It's covering the most breadth of it's getting the most puzzle pieces laid out on the table.
Yeah.
Then what's the, putting those puzzle pieces together in the best way without forced fits? What is the least ad hoc? What's the least contrived? There's 16 extant sources talking about the hill, the hole in the ground. 5 sources are talking about the stone box, direct, first-hand sources, first-hand accounts, talking about the stone box. Joseph gives a first-hand account of the stone box. Oliver says he went there and saw it for himself and gives an almost identical description as Joseph. Martin and David both claim they went there. Years later, Edward Stevenson, who's a Latter-day Saint member, comes back into town, finds an unbelieving non-member, and the non-member says, yeah, it's up at the top of the hill on the west side. It was exposed for decades. And then eventually it came down to the bottom of the hill and it got broke up and it's no longer there anymore. But an old unbelieving local agreed with that. Now that's a minute detail, but it's the same minute detail that Martin Harris said happened to the box as well. So we have independent attestation, not just of the stone box, but what happened to it.
But for every Christian, the central claim is that around 2,000 years ago, a real historical person named Jesus of Nazareth rose from the dead. So every Christian must ask themselves why it's reasonable to believe this. Trent answered this in a recent video and here today when he said that it is the eyewitnesses that are the primary reason and they're the grounds for Trent's belief, not only in the Bible, but in Christianity, Catholicism, and the whole thing. They reduce down to that ultimately. Just think about it. If the resurrection didn't happen, is it reasonable to be a Christian? The Bible provides us with at most 2 eyewitness accounts of the resurrection and 1 account from Paul, who claimed to see Jesus in a vision. And with that as his central basis, Trent concludes it's reasonable to believe that the Bible is inspired. And frankly, I actually agree with Trent. I believe that it is reasonable to believe that Jesus Christ rose from the dead. But let's compare that with the Book of Mormon.
Open a copy of the Book of Mormon, and you'll see 2 things right away: the testimony of 3 witnesses and the testimony of 8 witnesses. Who are these men? What is their testimony? And why is it important?
Interestingly, with the 3 witnesses, you have Joseph, Oliver, and David together in one visionary experience where the plates are laid out on a table, they see multiple artifacts, the angel speaks and connects the text and confirms the translation's correct. So we have that connection to the artifact, okay? And then you have Martin and Joseph with an independent attestation and then signing the same document. And then you have the 3rd witness through the 8 witnesses touching, handling, feeling, interacting with it, and just amazing. Just amazing.
The 2 groups of men recorded their experiences in the testimony of 3 witnesses and the testimony of 8 witnesses. Every copy of the Book of Mormon includes their words right at the front, addressed to all nations, kindreds, tongues, and people.
You have about 200 some extant manuscripts directly, many times, many of them firsthand for the 3 witnesses. You have over 60 for the 8 witnesses. You don't get anything like that for the resurrection or the...
There are well over 100 accounts from 19 separate eyewitnesses to the Book of Mormon plates who all went to their deathbeds testifying that they saw the plates despite facing a literal extermination order in Missouri and rampant mob violence.
And these are happening under duress. They're being persecuted. They're getting, the stuff that happened in Kirtland, Joseph and Sidney are getting tarred and feathered, Joseph being one of the witnesses of the golden plates himself, right? So they're getting persecuted. David Whitmer being taken out in Independence at Independence Square. They're sticking guns in front of all the men and saying, if you don't recant your testimony in the Book of Mormon, you're making widows of everybody here. He starts preaching. He starts preaching. He stood by his witness in the face of death and persecution, willingness to die. Obviously, Joseph's martyred for his belief of what he truly believed that he saw.
Joseph Sr. has somebody come into his house pretty early, threatens him with a debt, wants him to be paid back on the debt. And he says, well, wait a second. I'll forgive you of the debt right now. Take all the books of Mormon that are on the table, throw them into the fire. Burn them. Joseph Sr. says, well, I'm not going to do that. There's no way I'm going to do that. That's the word of God. I saw the golden plates for myself. I'm not going to do this. So he goes to prison. What's he doing in prison? He writes from prison. Actually, Samuel, his son, writes what his father was speaking in prison. And his father says, my only consolation is I'm not the first one to be persecuted for the gospel's sake, for something that they'd seen for themselves. And he says, I'm consoled by Paul. So Hiram from Liberty Jail writes a letter to literally comfort the church. Here they are in the basement of a prison house where if you light a fire, you're getting consumed with smoke, okay? And there's very little food. It's cold. And he writes a letter to the saints and basically says, I'm suffering for what my eyes have seen and what my hands have held. And he was willing to be persecuted and suffer for the truth of his eyewitness. Oliver and David have a moment with an apostle, William McClellan. And there's actually a reward on their life at that point for like $2,000, $2,500. He asked the two witnesses, because he's with them, he says, I've never had a vision in my life. I'm betting my life on this right now. Tell me, true or false? And they go, unquestionably true.
Can you imagine? The three witnesses by 1838 are all excommunicated from the very church that they founded. Okay, so if you're part of conspiracy, if you're part of fraud, this is the moment to unveil and expose
the true
and let me tell you what
Joseph
really
Smith.
happened in those early days. I know because my signature's on that document. Instead, the 3 and the 8 witnesses, many of the 8 witnesses die way too early, but the 3 and the 8 witnesses spend the rest of their lives defending the truth of their witness before the world.
Even when some of them were excommunicated by Joseph, they refused to deny what they had seen and experienced. And what Trent has presented today is essentially the secondhand gossip around it.
What happens is they give more testimonies after they're excommunicated from the church, supporting the golden plates and supporting their printed testimonies than what they gave before. It's amazing and remarkable. And even though it's an embarrassment, it verifies that they felt sincerely that their eyewitness was valid.
3 days before his death in 1888, David called his doctor to his bedside and asked, "Doctor, do you consider that I am in my right mind?" When assured that he was, David gave his final testimony. "I want to say to you all that the Bible and the record of the Nephites," meaning the Book of Mormon, "are true. So you can say that you have heard me bear my testimony on my deathbed." Think about this. A man who passionately disagreed with Joseph for 50 years, outlived him by 40 years, and had no tie or affiliation with the church that had migrated to the Rocky Mountains. And yet he defended the Book of Mormon until his dying breath.
Once you lay out the facts, what explanation is the best explanation of those facts that has the best quantitative scope. It's
Yeah.
covering the most breadth of it's getting the most puzzle pieces laid out on the table.
Yeah.
Then what's the, putting those puzzle pieces together in the best way without forced fits? What is the least ad hoc? What's the least contrived?
If there were plates and people saw them, what did they see? And then if they're actually plates that are an ancient record, that means he is a prophet.
Sure.
And if there aren't, that means he's not.
What is the least ad hoc? What's the least contrived?